Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Welcome, everybody. All right, let's see who is in. Burgos, that's a new person, and Gents Club GTV. Life Matrix, hello. Mobile Savage, Shari D, welcome. Ready or Not, that's a good username. Keelcook Monty, Nagra Sagiel, T-Box, Paul Any9. I think that's everybody. Kate Moore, Bladestar 775, Mark, Moonlit Illusion, Transcend 1111. Let's see, just reading up what you guys are writing about here. Okay. All right, so a little bit quiet this week, but it might be because I was at Quartzsite for a big chunk of the week and not looking at any news or anything. Some weird stuff did happen when I was down there, but I'm just going to start kind of randomly on some other stuff I found. Okay. Some of this has come up before. Columbus did not actually discover America because he landed only in the Bahamas. That was a little bit older one that he never made it to America. But I noticed another change. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was this big spiel that we just heard like every year in history class about how when Christopher Columbus was sailing over here with his crew, the crew thought that the world was flat. And the longer they sailed, the more the crew became convinced that they were going to sail off the edge, and they were terrified. And there was like a near mutiny where they refused to sail any further. And the irritating thing is I can't remember exactly how he solved that, but I do remember it was a big hairy situation because they just were like, no, if we go any further, we're going to fall off the edge of the earth. And it was always this big thing. Ha ha ha. They thought the world was flat. Okay, well, apparently in this timeline, that never happened. The reason for their refusal was not as silly as Washington Irving argued in his 1828 biography of Columbus. So apparently one guy named Washington Irving is now responsible for this false story. It wasn't because the Portuguese thought the earth was flat. In fact, every sailor by then knew the earth was round. The Portuguese actually could see that Columbus's calculations were dead wrong. India could not possibly be only 4,000 kilometers east of Portugal, as Columbus had imagined. It had to be 10 to 12,000 kilometers away, an impossible distance for a mere caravel to travel. All right, so now I guess I've been kind of talking about this, that they knew that the world... They knew that the world was round. I don't know what I know about the world anymore, but supposedly this information that the world is supposedly round goes much further back than it did in my old timeline, because in my old timeline, Columbus's crew all thought that the world was flat, but not here. Okay, so it was a great stroke of luck that allowed Columbus to land exactly where he wrongly expected to find India. For the next 10 years, he continued to believe that he was in India against mounting evidence to the contrary. All right, so that was a change. I don't remember that they knew that the world was round. That was not right. They all knew it was round. Yes, Brian Stavely, welcome. So that's one. Now I'm going to talk about some... I'm going to kind of mix up my Quartzsite Arizona trip Emmys, because these are not quite as exciting, but they're interesting to me because I go to Quartzsite every year. I've missed very few years going up to Quartzsite. And I know the route. Okay, so the route, there's 15 down here. I come north on the 15. I go on the 215. I get up to here and I have a decision to make. I can either take the 60, and the 60 bleeds into the 10, Or in the old timeline, as recently as 1 year ago, I have not looked at this since a year ago, but as recently as 1 year ago, the 215, either you'd go on the 60 to the 10 or you continue on the 215 to the 10 freeway. The 215 bled into the 10. So if you screwed up and missed the 60 exit, you just keep going and you stay on the 215 and you would hit the 10. Well, now the 215 hits this 91 freeway or something. I don't know what this is, but this didn't happen here like this. It just went straight up. I'm not sure even what that's supposed to be. Is that supposed to be still the 215? I guess, but it didn't split off like this. It just fed up into the 10. So also there wasn't this much extra distance. Now it's like really obvious that you have to take the 60. The thing that made it confusing was the 60 looks shorter, but it's kind of mountainous. So it takes longer than you'd think. But anyway, so this region up here has changed with this crossover. And it looks like you really have to get over here to stay on the 215. You didn't used to. It just went right to the 10. All right, so that's changed. The overall shape of things is different. You actually kind of go up the 15 here, and then the 10 kind of zags back south over here. And this is where I'm going. That didn't used to be the case. It was straight across before. So some changes. I've mentioned before the Salton Sea looks massive now. That thing just gets bigger and bigger. It's ridiculous. All right, so there's a couple changes in the maps. All right, now jumping hectically to another weird thing. Apparently now elves, like elvish, dwarfs, elves, that kind of thing, elves are now modeled after real people. It's called Williams syndrome, a genetic disorder that affects many parts of the body. Facial features frequently include a broad forehead, short nose, full cheeks, and an appearance that has been described as elven. In addition, this Williams syndrome makes you weirdly friendly and nice. It's weird. Okay, so they look like elves, and they have shorter than normal stature, and they have spaced apart pointy teeth. So they kind of look like I don't know. That's just weird because it reminds me of creatures from fantasy novels. Spaced pointy teeth, all this weird stuff. So it makes you abnormally friendly. And then there's a bunch of rumors online. Oh, this is where the concept of the elves came from. It was from this Williams syndrome. All right, so here are some of the characteristics. Sunken nasal bridge, puffiness around the eyes, can still see the epicanthal fold. Epicanthal fold is kind of like an Asian-y look on the top of the eye here. That used to be just Asians, but now it's some Europeans and Williams syndrome people and people born with fetal alcohol syndrome and what have you. All right, so what else do these people have? Blue eyes with a starry pattern. So there'll be like a weird star pattern in the eyes. Long upper lip, and they have kind of like a big mouth. Small and widely spaced teeth. Wider mouth, ear to smile. Prominent lower lip and small chin are some of the symptoms of it in the look. In addition, they said that that they tend to be small of stature and short. So here is somebody with the Williams syndrome. See the big smile, the weird eyes, blah, blah, blah. It's a different look, definitely. Link. All right, let's see. They do have some other issues, like they have some heart problems, etc., but it's nothing you could really see. Low birth weight. So supposedly there's a couple of genes missing, and and this causes this. But what's interesting is they're also saying that canines, dogs, also have, the more friendly they are, is correlated with specific changes in those same genes. So they're saying like dogs became friendly because of a similar kind of variation in their genetics that made them more prone to be friendly, and possibly also their face looking different. I mean, if you look at a domestic dog versus a wolf, they have a different kind of a face, and they're just more friendly. So they're kind of linking this now that humans and canines can both have something like this, and it results in the same things. So this seems to be like a really strong pattern with the Mandela effect in general. Is a couple things here. One is just weird appearances in people, a lot of weird genetic stuff here, excuses for people to look unusual, and then you have this second very strong trend with the ME in that it just seems like every kind of a mythological thing is now modeled after something that's real. Like Tom Thumb was real here. A lot of fairy tale story people were modeled after real people here. In fact, just seems like just about all of them were. So this is another example where now we have elves, and they were actually modeled, now they're saying, after this real syndrome, where they do look very unusual. So that's two trends in one. Williams syndrome, really the Emmy is getting funnier, cat more. Yeah, I don't know how far it's going to go. We're going to have elves and dwarves. Well, we have dwarves, I guess, but we're going to get like everything. I think we're going to maybe get something with the giants is going to happen, because in my old timeline, there really wasn't a lot of talk about there being a whole race of giants. Then there was just a few rumors, and now it's like everywhere. So I'm expecting a race of giants, like maybe in the fossils, to be actually officially discovered. Hexagon eyes. Yeah, that one I covered a long time ago. That was one of my first ones. Is the changes in these genes making everybody friendlier? Let's spread it to the world. Yeah, I don't know. People are definitely different here, more emotional. First hexagon eyes, now stars. Like they said, it was like a starry pattern in the eyes. All of California is tiny now. Nevada looks huge. Yeah. There's a new German number 3 called up after Goring and Hess was a new guy, Robert Ley. Yeah, I've never heard of Robert Ley. So that was from the Nuremberg process in Germany. I only have ever heard of the Nuremberg trials. It's not Nuremberg now, is it? Nuremberg. I think there was, didn't I cover another Emmy about Nuremberg? Nuremberg trials. I thought there was an M, Nuremberg, an N and an M switchover for Nuremberg. All right, so I've never heard of Nuremberg process. That's interesting. I don't know if that's just regional. It looks like it's still pretty much Nuremberg trials. All right, just checking. All right, so I talked last week about this spire thing that changed in the city. And this is kind of, I just wanted to show an image of it for a couple of reasons. One, I've talked about this before. The building that this is attached to was definitely a Bevmo, which I did not know what a Bevmo was when I first moved here because I don't drink. And I thought that, I'm like, beverages? I don't know what I thought, but I didn't realize it would be liquor, and it sounded kind of interesting. So the building was really pretty inside with all this wood, and I went in there. I'm like, oh, it's a liquor store. That's how I learned what Bevmo was, by going into this store. In this timeline, this location has never been a Bevmo. It's always been this like holiday something wine something. It's still a liquor store, but it was never a Bevmo. And the Bevmo has always been somewhere else in town. That's a boring building. This building is still very beautiful, but it has never been a Bevmo. So somewhere a couple years ago, and I'm not sure when this switched over, this thing suddenly showed up. This giant spire. It's like 3 stories high. Now, my town has height rules. So the only thing that's this high is very old stuff. It's nearly impossible to get, it basically is impossible to get permission to build any new signs this big. And even really big companies have not been able to convince them to do it. So I was really confused how they built this thing, how they got this thing, and it was ugly. You can see it's just not that pretty. I'm like, how did they get permission? Well, it's always been here. They didn't get permission. It's really old. So when this thing first showed, it was these panels of metal that were like gray, and it didn't have these cross pieces here. And then a while, it's only been a couple months maybe, max. Then it turned all red, and it was these red metal panels. These had rivets on them and everything. I was really inspecting this because this whole thing was a big fat Emmy. So it was red here and here, which I thought looked better. And then I mentioned last week that suddenly it turned to the smooth pattern. So I was through there last week after the last live stream, and it looked like it was cement. I didn't actually get out of the car because I had a lot to do last week, but it looked like it was all smooth cement. So I'm looking at this image online, but it's weird because it almost looks like there's panels in here. It's like it's like remnants of the panels. You can see these square patterns, but there's no rivets or anything. And you sure as heck can't just smooth cement over panels, over metal rivet panels. And it's not like new cement. So these things showed up, and I just think it's really weird that it's like cement, but yet you can still see like squares like it was panels. I don't think it could have ever been that. The other thing is it's pointier up here, so I don't think that they somehow managed to smooth cement over panels, which I don't think is possible. But it got more pointy up here, so the overall shape has slightly changed. So one of the reasons I wanted to put this in is because it's got these dents, like maybe people would think, oh, I thought it was panels, but it was just those dents. But when you're really there, it's not going to fool you. And like I said, I remember the rivets and everything. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to keep an eye on that in case it changes again, because this thing has been super shifty. It wasn't even there. Now it's gone through at least 3 versions of itself. All right. Another thing I just saw like 15 minutes ago, or no, I should say 45 minutes ago, a little bit before the show. Just taking a quick look at the skull. The back of the head now, this neck region has filled out. It really looks armored in here. This has been developing for a number of years, but I just wanted to show that it's very thick here, and then it thins out here, and that's a new look. That's back view of the skull, so I just wanted to mention that one. Not seeing any humongous recent changes. This is very much differentiated here. When I was first seeing these, they were all about the same looking, and they looked a lot like these, although these have kind of butterflied out a lot too. So anyway, all these weird spikes. So anyway, I'm like burning along today. Let's see what you guys are up to here. Vikings had that fear that they were going to sail off the earth. No, it was definitely the Christopher Columbus story. America almost didn't get discovered because the mutiny and blah blah blah. That's interesting because the Vikings were just kind of a fantasy that the Vikings had got here before Columbus, but now it's pretty much fact. So it's just kind of, if you're saying the Vikings now had that fear, that's pretty funny. They had that fear, but they came here anyway, huh? Up above, it says it will start in 6 minutes. Are you talking about my live stream before it started? It does count down. It counts down the minutes. First it says an hour, and then right around at 60 minutes, it starts going 59 minutes, 58 minutes, 57 minutes, like that. So that's normal YouTube. Dennis Branham's in, Skook's Strange World, Strawberry Time, David Cook. People showing up here. Looks like it's not really... Agent Kagent Love has to run. I didn't even know you were in, but hello and goodbye. Vikings came to America before Columbus. In this timeline, yes. In my old timeline, that was just sort of, like a wild theory that didn't have much evidence. Like it had no evidence, basically. Have I covered ball lightning? Yes. That's been on a number of times. All kinds of lightnings have been on, along with the sprites and the blue jets and the positive and negative lightning and the staccato lightning and the ribbon lightning. And there's a whole bunch of weird, the colored lightning, all new. Ball lightning was just a theory, a wild story in my old timeline, but it's well documented here. All right, so just going through it. It seems like my other computer is not updating timely fashion. There, finally. Yeah, so about the Vikings, this timeline, there's tons of evidence that obviously they were here before Columbus. There's a Viking, an ancient Viking habitation in Cat One. I'm not really shocked to see that this Seafoam story is getting wilder and wilder. I've covered this a bit before. Whoops, just lost my second computer. There we go. So saw this on Reddit earlier today. See if it'll load this here. So basically, the story here is that Seafoam got churned up on the ocean, and then winds blew it, and it like took over this town. So it's mostly Seafoam, and some supposed expert down here said there'll be a little bit of water under the Seafoam, but it is actually caused by the breaking down of the Seafoam itself, which is kind of weird. So I don't want to play too much of this because but basically this person is wading through a giant pile of Seafoam, and this is supposed to go for blocks and blocks and blocks. The story of Seafoam is changed a little bit. They used to say it was caused by algae. But now it's just a little bit different. Now it's caused by dissolved organic matter, including proteins, lignins, and lipids, derived from sources such as the offshore breakdown of algal blooms. These compacts can act as surfactants or foaming agents. As the seawater is churned by breaking waves in the surf zone adjacent to the shore, the surfactants under these turbulent conditions trap air, forming persistent bubbles that stick to each other through surface tension. Seafoam is a global phenomena, and it varies depending on location. So basically, they said it was algae before, but now it's just dissolved organic matter. So you don't really need to have algae. It could be all this other junk. So anyway, Seafoam story, definitely expanding. Can't say I'm surprised on that one. Seafoam is weird and cool looking, and therefore this timeline loves it because it loves those weird, cool things. Oops, that is not the right one. Oh, it's here. Kind of all over the place today. All right, got that one. All right, so now we have a word for when you are genetically not good at tracking time. I guess that's all of us. Dyschromometria. It's like everything that Mandela Effectians experience, there's now a syndrome for it. So dyschromometria is a condition of cerebellar dysfunction in which an individual cannot accurately estimate the amount of time that has passed, i.e. distorted time perception is associated with cerebellar ataxia, when the cerebellum has been damaged and does not function to its fullest ability. So there's now a reason for it, according to them anyway. Also, lack of spatial awareness, poor short-term memory, and inability to keep track of time. Anyway, I just thought that was weird. I guess I don't have much more comments on that. Felt the shift in the wee hours. I don't know. Everything is so shifty. I'm just never sure about that. I kept track of time fine until around 2013 or so. Yeah, they say, oh, it's when you're getting older, but everything seemed like I didn't notice any significant shortening of the day until around then. And then it kicked in. And even when I talk to young people, 20 now, they'll even say it. And I never experienced anything like that when I was in the 20s. It's weird. My brain has a weird vibration to it when I shift. Definitely noticed even the last week some changes in the local roads, even from a week ago. So I'm not surprised. I had this 24-hour sickness with some fever and freezing and body pain. The peculiar thing was I had the feeling I was going through dimensions and it was painful. Anyone notice how some people have this pinky finger flying out on its own when they wave? I do just notice that it does that. I mean, the fingers used to be more like this. But now you have these over here, and this guy, I've been noticing that for a while, is doing his own thing. His thumb is still getting bigger. It's way down here now. I think it's almost longer than the pinky now, almost. It's still, look at the distance there. I think it's just very slowly continuing. Very slowly. Snow lightning, yep, that one's been on. Perhaps the evidence was hidden during our timelines and we are discovering the truth now. I don't think so. I think that that truth we had was the truth of that timeline. Because even the old books have changed. So the truth wasn't, I mean, people are saying, oh, it was hidden, but if you look in your books, it was there. You know, you look in a book from 1970 and the current storyline, it was in the book from 1970. So my thumb hurts for months, and then I noticed they are way lower than before. Yep. I noticed shoulders were acting up a little last week. Not real bad, but I kind of noticed because like one shoulder will hurt, and usually it'll be the right one. And then I'll wonder if maybe I played too much pickleball or something, and maybe I've strained it, so I'm a little concerned, you know, dial back on the pickleball. But then the left shoulder will hurt. Then this one will get better, and this will get better. And these two get treated so differently because, you know, I carry heavy stuff on the side, and I exercise this a lot, and the left side doesn't get it. So if there's kind of a wear and tear issue, it should not be on the left side. So when it does that weird bilateral thing, I'm thinking shift. I didn't see anything really obvious in the structure, but I think there's something brewing there, at least for a bit. I saw snow, lightning, and thunder for the first time ever on mountain 2 years ago. Yeah, the snow thunder showed up a couple years ago, but the snow lightning seems like it's really new. I've just been hearing about that this last few weeks. This snow lightning. Dark Wolf's in. He wants to remind you guys about Mandela Effect conference. I lost it. I saw it a second ago. Where did it go? Right in the middle, I'm reading something, and then the whole thing will jump. Sometimes I get deaf temporarily where it feels like a seal was placed on my ears and I can't hear very well. That's Nagrasa gel. Strawberry Time was wondering if it's migraine inflammation. Yeah, pickleball. Life Matrix was all freaking out about pickleball. Pickleball is weird. It's just suddenly taken off. It was in my old timeline, but almost like nobody ever heard of it, kind of a thing. I don't know if like, you know, if you ever feel like a little egomaniacal and wonder if a few of the Emmys are like personally kind of your doing, pickleball would probably be the one that I would claim as my fault or take responsibility for, because I played it when I was in high school and I loved it. I just loved it. But there just wasn't very many places. I mean, basically, once I got out of high school, I couldn't find it anywhere. And so I had to never play it again because it was nowhere. And they don't let you, after you graduate at 18, they don't let you in the high school anymore. So I just forgot about it for decades. And then what was it, like 5 or 6 years ago, I suddenly wanted to know if there was any pickleball around. And I found out that there's pickleball everywhere. And since I've started, pickleball has quadrupled in popularity a few years. So anyway, pickleball, you can look it up on the Google, and there's tons of videos on YouTube on pickleball. Pickleball is basically where you have a paddle, you play on a badminton court, you lower down the net, and you smack this wiffle ball looking thing around. So it's sort of like ping pong, but the table is really huge and it's a court and you stand on it. Just think of it like that. It's a lot of fun. You can have, it's a lot of fun and it's challenging, but you can also have fun right when you start. So it's cool. Like tennis, you kind of have to get to a certain level before you can have much fun because you can't control it enough. But pickleball, you can have fun right away. And younger kids can play it. Yeah, you know, you guys are talking about the migraine inflammation. I almost was going to cover it today, and then I kind of decided not to. But the whole thing with the migraines, the symptoms now, way back when I first heard of migraines, there was headaches and there was migraines. There was sensitivity to light and it just hurt really bad. Then this whole migraine aura has been developing the last 10, 15 years where you see weird visual phenomena before. But it seems like it's that whole symptomology just keeps expanding. So if you talk to people now, there's all kinds of weird nerve impulses in the body, weird reactions all through the body before this migraine thing. It's just like this whole vague migraine storyline, and you can get the migraine aura and not get the migraine. So you see weird stuff in your eyes, they blame it on the migraine, but you don't even necessarily even get pain. So but you have this excuse to see real weird creepy things and experience all these weird episodes of total weirdness, and then they say it's a migraine and you don't even have to have a headache. And I was talking to somebody at Quartzsite and she was saying that she's been getting like inability to speak when she has a migraine, that she has the words in her mind but she can't utter them. So she'll go for a period of about 20 minutes where she can't talk. And supposedly that's not super uncommon now with migraines. So that's why when you were saying when Strawberry Time was all, oh, maybe your ears shut off due to migraine, I'm like, that just wasn't a thing for migraines in my old timeline. And it's been developing, getting weirder and weirder and weirder. So basically, you can have all these weird symptoms. They'll blame it on migraine. They have no idea what causes it, hardly. And you don't even have to have a headache. I don't know. There's that whole storyline is just getting weird. It's like an excuse to have an attack of weird. Migraines, visual distortions, and periphery. You see, it wasn't like that like 20 years ago for me. But now it's gone beyond the visual. You can have numbness all through different parts of your body, all this other stuff. Silent migraines, so you have it and don't know. I mean, like, I'm going to have to look that up. What the heck is a silent migraine anyway? Silent. If you have a migraine and not know, then how do you know you have a migraine? How did they know you had a migraine? Silent migraines. Something's funny with that whole migraine story. Okay, aura symptoms without a headache. Yeah, so aura, yeah. Okay, so they're just they have a new word. Aura without the actual headache. They're calling it silent migraine. Ocular or ophthalmic migraine, it's a form of silent migraine. Silent in the sense that isn't accompanied by pain. A cephalgic migraine is a neurological syndrome, relatively uncommon variant, which patients may experience aura, nausea, photophobia. All right, so they've just come up with new aura without migraine or something was how they were kind of saying it. Hemiparesis and other migraine symptoms, but does not experience headache. Fulfilling the conditions of migraine aura with no or minimal headache. It's sometimes distinguished from visual only migraine without headache is called ocular migraine. All right, what is actually hemiparesis? I can't remember. Weakness of one's entire side of the body. Hemiplegia. Okay, so yes, you can get, with migraine, you can now get weakness on one side of your body, so it mimics stroke now. Interesting. See, that wasn't the case like a year or two ago when I looked into. I've looked at intermittently because these are really weird, these migraine aura things. So now there's this thing called childhood periodic syndromes. Okay, anyway, it's just getting weird. You have an excuse to feel really weird now. Sounds like palsy. Yeah. I just heard about Bell's palsy for the first time about a year ago when my friend came down with it. And then suddenly Bell's palsy was like everywhere. Everybody's getting it. So Bell's palsy is when one side of your face droops, which I would immediately say stroke. But no, they just said it's something weird happening with your nerves. And a lot of times you're fine, because when I heard that my friend's face was drooping on half the side, I'm like, well, damn, that's horrible. It must be a stroke. But now this Bell's palsy thing is everywhere. So I don't know. Never heard of that one either, but it seems like it's pretty common here. I heard of it like starting a year ago, but so now we have these periodic syndromes. Oh, interesting. Strawberry time. When I looked in the mirror, half my face would be missing, like a strange spell of some kind. That's what this woman was saying. She said that recently her migraines changed so that she wouldn't process certain things. So, like, she might look at a face and then the nose would be missing. And I was asking her, well, what do you see instead? Like, is there a hole in their face? And she said, no. And she's not even exactly sure what she does see. I'm like, is it just skin color? And she's not even sure. So she's going to, like, look next time it happens. Anyways, she just started experiencing this. Interesting. I've looked into migraine aura over the years many times because it's really fascinating, and it's just getting weirder and weirder. Pickleball I've never heard of pickleball in my timeline. It is newly popular, but it's strangely exploding. And I don't know, there's something, because of my past of playing it, I don't know. Pickleball and fuzzy caterpillars. If there's any Emmys that are my fault, it's two. All right, so randomly yapping about everything. Ooh, no, wrong paper. All right, a couple quick logo ones. Going up to Quartzsite, there is a Super 8 motel. It's been there about 10 years. Ridiculously expensive during this snowbird season. So I never stay in it, but I drive right by it because it is on the west side of town. So in order to get into town, I drive by it. I usually camp out in the boonies to the west of town and then drive in the mornings. And this year, I took a look at the sign, and it's different. So the one they have is this one, 2008 to 2018. I've never seen the 8, I guess for you it'll be like all cocked to the side. Now, I've said repeatedly that I swear so many signs are tipping over, like, so that they're cursive or they're slanted. This timeline loves to slantify everything. So, of course, the Super 8 now is all slantified. Big, I just remember it saying Super 8, not motel. This timeline seems to line there. I mean, it's obviously old, scungy, dingy sign. It's not like they just put up this Super 8 sign. So, I mean, if you know Quartzsite, I mean, stuff doesn't usually get... There are a few things in Quartzsite that get the shiny new look. So, Super 8 would not be expected to be one of those. Another thing about quartzite. This one flipped me out. This has changed from last year. So I always camp out in the desert near Dome Rock. It's on Dome Rock Road and it's Dome Rock. All right, so now you see this is Dome Rock here. And this has totally changed. Dome Rock used to be a kind of a low mountain or a giant hill that was dome shaped. It had a dome shape. It was actually kind of a subtle mountain, and I would get a little confused on which one was Dome Rock because they all kind of look the same, but Dome Rock was a little bigger and more dome shaped. And the one tell that I really used was that there were these are diggings, because there's a rock up in here, like a semi-precious gemstone called allanite, and people dig for it up here. And it's kind of mined out. There might be some in here, but I haven't heard of anybody finding any. It's another kind of interesting story because it was my first rockhound exhibition ever in my life. It was to this Dome Rock. And something happened, like I think it was that my key wasn't working right in my car at the time. And I got there late and I was last in the line to get up there. And then I didn't have my sneakers on yet, so I had to stop and do all that. So basically, I was last on the hill. Every digging spot was taken but one. So I just sat down in the one spot. And then out of like 30 people, I was the only one who found anything. And then somebody sat next to me and tried to find stuff, and which is considered super rude. And it was like all the rock ended right next to me, and that person got none. So it was like, just like, I don't know, it was like the universe going no to that guy. So anyway, the whole story is kind of weird when I think back on it. But anyway, so this rock has totally changed. It does kind of have a certain significance to me because I always camp by it. And like I said, it was my first rock hounding trip ever, and it was a very successful trip. I still have the allanite. This stuff on the top was not there. So if you look at the surrounding mountains now, none of them have this. And it's more like it's like a volcano shape now with this. So I guess now it's Dome Rock because of this pustule of rock. Now, I've been on this mountain and I've stood on the top, and now you can't very easily because of this rock up here. It looks like you'd probably have a hard time. But used to be you just stroll on up here and you could stand on there. Also, this trail up used to be more zigzaggy, so I had a little bit of trouble recognizing Dome Rock. Obviously, in this timeline, it's always been like this. So it kind of reminds me of the Capitol building, because we talked about the Capitol building a few weeks ago, and how I remember it being more dome-like. It's sort of the same thing. So this is the Capitol building now. Bloop. I remember it being more dome-like, not having these weird layer cake things. And this statue we've talked about, that's really weird. And the statue looks a lot bigger in relationship to the dome here. But so the same thing has kind of happened. I don't know if I'm just finding patterns in the nowhere lands, but it's gotten less dome-like, and it's got this weird puddle, as I called the other one. It's got this weird cap on it now that it didn't have, and then it's got this weird statue. So it just kind of, when I saw what happened at Dome Rock, it just reminded me of that. It's got narrower, it's got a thing on the top. I don't know why this has changed. It's now the only thing with this pustule. This mountain was not easy to recognize before, but now it is, because it's the only one with this funny rock pustule on the top, which I guess they're saying there's a pustule on the top of the dome, but it's not dome shaped anymore. So I don't know, that whole thing. So Dome Rock, I say no. Got that. Stater Brothers logo. I don't know. Stater Brothers is a pretty big company, but I am not sure how many people have a Stater by you. This happened about 2 or 3 years ago, actually, that I noticed that the Stater brothers had this weird seal thing as the O, and it was this in the O where it's brothers. This thing showed up on my local Stater brothers. Um, so my local Stater brothers was remodeled around that time, so I figured they just put this in, and that it was just a plain old O before, and I thought they just changed it. But I finally decided to look it up, and supposedly that thing's been on there since the 70s. No freaking way. But it's everywhere now, this logo thing. It definitely was not on the O. I can't swear that the logo was different, but it was not on the O before, and it totally is now. And ironically, the newest one is this, and I have not seen that at all. So the one I'm seeing is the older one, supposedly. So that was probably like an early ME for me, the Stater Brothers one. It kind of slipped through. I was not trusting myself. But it's very obvious. It's a very big seal that's on it now. The Shiva in front of CERN now has something like a glass or hourglass in her hand. Oh, I do remember them having that weird. Let's see. Let's take a look at Shiva at CERN. Shiva attached to CERN. See if anything is obviously different. Talked a few months ago about that statue basically being mostly out of the circle now. And that is the last I seen. All right, I hate to break it to you, but if you're talking about that thing that's up here, it had that for me for the last few years. I do remember originally there being like a staff thing, but that changed like 2 years ago. You can see on there. Ugh, no, you can't. Too tiny. She's mostly out of the circle now. See if my computer can tolerate me looking up. I feel like I should just go through my indicator MEs just to see what's up. Somebody was commenting on the channel that they just noticed that the tablecloth at the Last Supper is all bunched up. I noticed that one like 6 months ago, and I commented on the channel. So that person just noticed. So, I think we're probably not shifting at the same time there. Ooh, this is one I think I was going to say something, and I forgot a couple weeks ago. Well, maybe I did say it. It's all that gray on the Mars lander. I think I did cover that a couple weeks ago. All this gray was different. Yeah, I did cover that. Okay. Gray, now that I mention it. Making a quick gander here. My computer is running decently fast. One thing I noticed is that head is getting real fat. I don't remember the head being that fat. Look at how fat that neck is. The head looks oversized. Oh, that's different. This thing, I remember that hourglass thing has been there for several years for me. I do remember when it switched over, I remember there being like a staff type thing in here, like maybe 3 years ago when I first started looking at that for a short while. All right, I'm not seeing a huge bunch of changes. This thing has kind of settled down, except for that fat face. Brr, brr, brr. Fat face, the only thing I'm really seeing that's recent for me. Any of you guys maybe shifted in more recently? See, where's that Last Supper? Last Supper. Come on, computer, you could do it. Well, it's thinking about loading. I'll see what you guys are up to. The team and I have been hard at work behind the scenes. Dark Wolf. I hope that means that that video will be out. Talking about seeing weird things in the periphery of the vision. Yeah, I do see stuff looks like it's moving sometimes. You gotta wonder what all that is. Looks like a she. Yeah, the Shiva thing. It was a she. Shiva was female for me originally. Had the 3 pairs of arms instead of the 2. That was male. Lately, the male is looking very female-y. I think was about 8 months ago. There's a male-female dichotomy thing in the storyline for Shiva now, kind of. So that kind of in keeping with what this timeline likes, with the gender bending and the kind of amalgamating the two. Shiva is generally male unless you are referring to Shiv Shakti, which is half male and half female. Kali. See, that whole Shiv Shakti, that was not there a year ago. That I noticed when that one showed. I kept looking at that Shiva storyline through the months, and that just, there's some point where I'm like, I'm going crazy because the story keeps shifting. She didn't have anything in her hand before, at least for me. Oh, that's interesting, Shari. She always had stuff in her hand for me, but it did change to that hourglass thing, but quite some time ago for me. I do not recall having nothing in except for that hand, the stop hand. The speed and frequency of changes appears to be accelerating. I don't know. I went through this huge dead zone for months before Christmas. Now it's kicking back in, definitely. It seems like the local MEs and like the stuff around me is shifting more. It was like before it was out there shifting. But now it just seems like the local ones have kicked in more. I have to disagree. I feel it waxes and wanes. I do think the ME waxes and wanes, but there's also other like trends within it. Awfully shapely for a man. Yeah, exactly. I've noticed the last year and a half, the man Shiva is looking strangely feminine in the body, especially in the butt region. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing then. Because guess what? The Last Supper never loaded, so I'm going to cry uncle on that one. Let's see if I can look at it this way. Hopefully we're still functioning here online. Looks like it, yes. I like to use my old image over and over because you know it should not have changed. There's so many versions now. I don't know, why does that one have a towel and stuff? This one looks close to the one that I have. Does not appear to be functioning very rapidly. Ugh, that's not helpful at all. This is why I like my saved ones. Let's see if we can find. This weird one with this towel and this wine goblet in the front. I don't recognize that one. Boy, there's so many versions now. Used to be you type that in and you just get one image over and over, but now it's like there's 100 images of the Last Supper, all with these different variations. So anyway, the point was that there's this bunchings at the so irritating. That there's like it's tied off at the tablecloth. That's been the case for me for a while, but I do remember commenting how it changed. I'm not seeing any really recent changes. These tapestries look weird back here. Apparently in this timeline it's so degraded that there's a million different versions of what people think it looks like is kind of the excuse. So it's hard to really track changes in it because there's just 100 versions. That's why I have that one that I downloaded and put on my computer a long time ago, but of course it won't load. How inconvenient is that? Lincoln doing sign language is new. Yeah, I've not heard of Lincoln doing sign language. Lincoln doing sign language with his hands. Huh. Lincoln. Oh, yeah. So they made like a gay-looking Abraham Lincoln in L.A. Somehow I'm not really surprised. This whole thing, this is appropriate. I don't know. This timeline seems to be pretty fond of the idea of Lincoln having been gay. I don't know what to think about all that, but I think we'll probably hear more about that. I'm not sure what you mean by sign language, so I'm just going to type it in and see. Lincoln Memorial, Lincoln Sign Language. Lincoln's hands are making sign language symbols of his initials A and L. Lincoln Memorial myths. So what, he was sign languaging on the Lincoln Memorial? Face is carved in the back of Abraham Lincoln's head? The truth is that the face is nothing more than the viewer's interpretation of Lincoln's hair. Okay. All right, so we've talked about this before, that we thought that his hands, the clutchiness of the hands was altered. So now we have that his hands are making the sign language symbols for A and L. That's a new one. Okay, so they're saying the status is false, though. While French had an understanding of sign language characters, he did not incorporate explicit symbols into sculpture of Lincoln. Okay, so they're saying that's not true. Okay, so they're saying that he didn't sign language. Huh. Never heard that myth, but it's not true in this timeline. You have to wonder why it's a myth, though. Maybe it's true somewhere. I don't know. Did you cover people riding cows? Yeah, that was last week. Last week was people riding cows. I remember learning that in school. That Lincoln was doing sign language. Wouldn't surprise me. If it's a myth now, I then immediately have to suspect it was true somewhere. My brother got bucked off our steer. Okay, well, jumping on one and then getting thrown off is not what they're talking about. They're talking about that you can ride along them with a saddle, and they're pretty mellow, and they go where you say, and those kind of things. Like jumping on something and hanging on for dear life versus actually having it be a decent steed that listens to you. That is what we're talking about. Okay, so got that. Got that. All right, so we've got more kinds of bison. There's a European bison now. There was never a European bison before, and it's a little bit sway-backed or something, but basically it looks like a bison. Interestingly, this European bison reminds me more of the bison I used to know because it kind of has like a strip of fur up along the back line, which is more like how I remember it. Not exactly, but I mean, the current one has this big shaggy bunch here, but it doesn't have, it used to have this strip of black fur along the back for me, and it used to be more cow shaped. So this one is a little closer. It actually looks more right to me than the current one. It was a little more cow shaped, the old bison. So, and then in addition to the one in Europe, there's two that we have now, two kinds of bison in the New World. 2 extant and 6 extinct species are recognized. 5 became extinct in the Quaternary extinction event. All right, there was only one at the time of the Native Americans when the white man got here for me, and that was bison. But now there's all these species, and there's the European one. 2 surviving species, the American bison, found only in North America, although commonly known as the buffalo. I see that there was buffalo and bison were interchangeable before, but now I guess buffalo is one particular kind of bison. So there's 2 subspecies of the American bison. There were not 2 subspecies before. The plains bison and the wood bison. This is total new. There was not 2. Oh my goodness. Are you serious? This was not even here last week. A 3rd subspecies, the eastern bison, is no longer considered a valid taxon, being a junior synonym of BB bison. That sentence, I swear, was not in there last week. There was not a 3rd. There was 2. I even wrote it down from right here, plains and woods. Okay, so now there was this 3rd one. All right, so there's American bison, which is more like they look now. See, to me, there was this stripe here, and they weren't that naked there. And they had a little more fur down there. Their head wasn't that big. They were more cow-like. Their head is turning like totally black. That wasn't how it was. The fur here, it was more furry. They weren't like half naked in the back. I mean, like, they had more fur for me. Okay, so yes, extra bison kinds. Europe did not have a bison. It sure as heck did not have one that looked like our bison. There were never buffaloes in Europe. Yep, exactly. Nope. Skook's talking about water buffalo. Yeah, they're not talking about water buffalo. Yes, I did have buffalo in my timeline a long time, but that's not them. These are buffalo looking buffalo. Like Germany, Emmys for me. Right when I'm reading it, it jumps. Germany, Emmys for me. Germany has always been like this and was not landlocked. Sorry. I don't know. I think there's a shift because I think Shari, the Shari I used to know that came from my old timeline, is now this new Shari that doesn't share a lot of MEs with me like you did before. Germany was absolutely landlocked for me, and Poland. What was it, about 2 years ago that shifted? People remember an island on the left side of Australia and they think it was Papua New Guinea. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't speak for people, but last I heard, the island on the left, some people remember New Zealand on the left. Some of them remember it right on the right, and then it was well, for you guys, on the right, and then it was way out in the ocean, and now it's getting closer to how I remember it, but it is split into almost three. So it was New Zealand on the left, not Papua New Guinea. Last I heard, I don't know who's in the timeline now. Somebody just gave me a $20 super chat, so thank you so much for that. Let me see if I can figure out who that is. It's showing at the top, but it's not showing who did it. When it happen a long time ago? Super chat. I'm going to click on it and see what... Futuristic. Thank you. $20. Appreciate that. That is like real money. What do you know? Very nice. Now let's see if we can make it work again. The head does look different. The recent changes, those buffalo heads are getting really dark. I'm betting that those subspecies are going to continue to split apart. All right, let me jump ahead. Oh, there's where you gave me the $20. It was just really slow. I'm an Aussie, always on the right for me. It was on the right for me, but it was snuggled up much closer. It's coming back though. It's sliding for you guys. It's sliding back towards Australia now. Sardinia was way smaller. How do you have so many frogs in the back croaking? Do they not hibernate during the winter months where you live? Q Cook Monty. No, because here it's basically hot and dry all summer, and most plants and a lot of animals that can kind of just get like, they don't do much because you can't. But now it's the rainy season. It gets cold, but it's not that cold. It gets to be like high 30s, low 40s is about as cold as it gets. It very rarely even gets frosty. So all the plants get to growing now. They've got water. I mean, there's no snow. It's a little chilly, but they're adapted. And they go to town, and so do all the frogs. The frogs' breeding season is now. They go to town, and you hear the frogs in the winter because that's when there's water. The rest of the time, it's like too dry. So for us, yes, the frogs go bananaramas in the winter. We didn't get too many of them bred last year, so it's not as noisy this year as last year. But also, we haven't had last year we had a lot of rains back to back. This year didn't, not as, it's just kind of normal so far. Papua New Guinea was never connected to Indonesia. It was a separate island in the middle of nowhere. Yep. Sicily is now overlapping Italy. I don't think that's possible, is it? No, there's still a little space there. Tynesy. I'm waiting for that bridge to show up. Last I checked, they were thinking about having a bridge. Oh, gosh, it's close now. Look at that. Oh, it really does look like it's gotten closer. I wonder how many miles between. That's so close. Miles between Sicily and Italy. 1.9 miles between Capo Polaro and Torre Cavallo in Calabria. 1.9 miles. All right, so last I heard they were thinking about a bridge, but then they... While the bridge has been proposed since ancient times, a detailed plan was made in the 1990s, canceled in 2006. Canceled again in 2013. The bridge would have been the longest suspension bridge in the world. Yeah, in old timeline, those were so far away, there was no talk of a bridge. I'm going to flip out if there's suddenly a bridge shows up. Seriously. I keep waiting for there to suddenly be a bridge. Okay. Keep looking at that. There's talk of a bridge. There's space for... It's close enough for a bridge. No wonder kangaroos are in Papua New Guinea. Yeah, right. There were no kangaroos outside of Australia before. The only marsupial outside of Australia was the possum. And I used to ask them, like, how did that... They would say only marsupials only live in Australia, but then we had the possum here, and I would ask on that, and I never got a straight answer from anybody. And I think I just kind of assumed that the possum had snuck over here like as a pest and taken over. But of course, I did not look into it well enough. But, you know, that was even before the internet, so it was not easy to just get information. It was a big ordeal. Eva, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Yeah, really. I'm just waiting. You know, like a while back, I said, I think that the Shiva at CERN is going to pop out of her circle, and she has. It took a while. It may take a few years, but I think we will get our bridge. Or Italy will, anyways. Digital... Bill White, New Zealand Southwest North. Oh, it was on the west side. Yeah, it was just east for me, just snuggled up east. So southwest for you. A lot of people remember it just west. There was a thing I was looking up where the New Zealanders were complaining that people would make maps and forget New Zealand. I thought that was just really weird because there's so many different memories of where it was, and New Zealand's pretty cool, so I can't really imagine people forgetting New Zealand when there's a whole bunch of other way more forgettable islands than New Zealand. Australia is not the land down under anymore. Yeah, nope. You're just kind of on the bottomish, but you're not really under. At least not significantly so. In my timeline, buffalo was extinct. Yeah, I really suspect. I remember thinking they were extinct, but then there was some herds of them that someone had. But then they said, oh, they're all mixed with cow. And then when I moved here, suddenly there was this wild herd of them on the Air Force base. Is it the Air Force base? Yeah, the Air Force base. And now, oh no, wait, there's a pure line of them they're introducing at Yellowstone. So yeah, I mean, I think they were probably, I'm not sure on that one, but there definitely seems to follow the pattern of them just getting more and more. All right, so where am I now? Got that one. More weird space stuff. Okay, so a couple years ago, I don't think it's maybe not even a full 2 years ago, they were starting to say, oh, there's this planet, this weird planet where it rains diamonds. And I already knew about the Emmy when I heard that, so I was already suspicious this is more weird Emmy bizarreness, rains diamond. Of course, they would be cut diamonds, but still diamonds are valuable, and it's raining diamonds on this weird planet out in the middle of nowhere. Well, now it rains diamonds on Jupiter and Saturn. So that's bull. It rains diamonds on Jupiter and Saturn. I'm like, no. I covered before how it was raining like peridot out of volcanoes. At first it was blasting quartz crystals out, then it was peridots. So now it's like raining diamonds on Jupiter and Saturn. New atmospheric data for the gas giants indicates that carbon is abundant in its dazzling crystal form. Lightning storms turn methane into soot, which hardens into chunks of graphite and then diamonds as it falls. So it used to be diamonds were formed in like the depths of the earth due to massive crushing pressure and heat. So like how is it getting formed in the atmosphere? There's no giant crushing pressure and heat. I mean, I'm absolutely positive it was giant crushing pressure and heat. So this one's like I'm like, no. This is so wrong. So now they're getting formed in the sky, and apparently they don't need massive crushing pressure and heat to form. Soot somehow gets hit by lightning. Sounds ridiculous. Soot gets hit by lightning. Lightning turns methane into soot, which falls. No. No. That is so wrong. Anyway, nothing will load. So those are supposed to be diamonds in their natural form. Yeah, that looks about right. Carbon is abundant in its dazzling crystal form. This thing, methane into soot. As it falls, it hardens into chunks of graphite and then diamond. I don't get how just falling through the sky will turn... I don't get how methane gets turned to soot, and then I don't see how falling hardens it into graphite and then diamond. I don't get that. These diamond hailstones eventually melt into a liquid sea in the planet's hot cores. The biggest diamonds would likely be about 1 centimeter in diameter. That's fairly decent size. Big enough to put on a ring. Of course, they would be uncut. It would be a size that you'd be proud to wear. The bottom line is that 1,000 tons of diamonds a year are being created on Saturn. Uranus and Neptune have long been thought to harbor gemstones. Yeah, I never heard that. But Saturn and Jupiter were not thought to have suitable atmospheres. Atmospheres. See, gemstones were formed like in the crusts and the cooling volcanic thing for me. Like most of them were from underground. So now, like a lot of them are falling from the sky now. This sounds, it's just, as a rock hounder, this just sounds so, I have taken classes on the formation of gemstones and like how the volcanic, this is so wrong. It is just, it's so wrong. Anyways, okay. As a rock hound, this is so wrong. It's so wrong. Jupiter's a girl's best friend. Yeah. They started out with this weird planet out in the boonies, and now it's freaking Jupiter and Saturn. How would they know unless they were on these planets? Who knows? We're going to find out diamonds are raining down in like Texas next, I hear. But the whole line about the pressure, it had to be heat and pressure. It was heat and pressure. That's why Superman he took that coal and he made a diamond because he was so powerful. It was the pressure and then the heat from the pressure because he was Superman. That's how he did it. You couldn't make them by throwing them from the sky with lightning. Jupiter's paying out. Yeah. We're going to get more gemstones and stuff. This timeline loves that weird stuff. All right. So there's another weird one with Saturn. Looking that one up. These stories are just so weird. NASA's. Now, people are all freaking out because I'm just talking like space is real. I don't know what space is. I don't know if the Earth is flat. I don't know if it's round. I don't know if it's just a video game and that's all moot. I don't know. So I'm just talking like normal because it's not a flat Earth channel and I don't know. I'm just telling you what they're saying and I'm saying it's ridiculous. I'm not even going to try to question whether in 20 years I'll be able to get on a space plane and go visit the diamond Saturn, or if Saturn will be a giant turtle by then. I don't know what they'll be saying. I don't know what space is. I do think there's a lot of weird stuff coming out of NASA that makes no sense and looks really fake. I don't know what that means. I don't know. So that's why I'm not really covering that. No, I'm not assuming that space is real, but I'm not assuming it's fake. I don't know what it is. Somebody gave me $300 of something, which is, it's probably not US dollars, I would imagine. I've been fooled before. So, but thank you. I have no idea how much that is, but I do appreciate every little bit. It's 300 somethings. And it was by, let's see who that is, NT. It's, okay, it's NT dollars. So Andy Chuang, I'm guessing that's some kind of Chinese money or something. Andy Chuang, thank you very much. Okay, so what's NASA's Cassini reveals? I should probably have had this one before the diamonds because the diamonds are even more funny. But it is not as exciting since it's not gemstones, but okay, ring rain. I missed one word on here. Ring rain. It's the new word. So apparently, Saturn's rings rain down on the planet. It's called ring rain. NASA research reveals Saturn is losing its ring. So basically, the story is that there's those ice crystals in the rings of Saturn, and somehow they rain down onto Saturn. And this was found in 2018. Never heard a dang thing about it till now. See if I can find a source that does not require me to pay. And I will try to explain it. It has to do with the electromagnetic field. All right, I'm just going to make it a little faster because that's Saturn ring rain. What happens when it rains? Diamond rain falls on Saturn. Wait. So in addition to that, the rings rain. Let's see if space.com will give me a shorter version of it. It's kind of confusing the way they're saying that somehow there's some kind of a static charge that pulls the rain towards the planet. I would have guessed that gravity would do that. I don't really get why they're melting if they're out there in space. Let's see if it says. I just thought of that right now, actually. I saw this one right before I was leaving for Quartzsite, and so I didn't really research it that much because I had a lot to do. Okay. Taken together, the papers paint a detailed picture of what's happening between the planet's innermost rings, dang it, and its upper atmosphere. Surprisingly eye-catching phenomena like a pounding hail of compounds pummeling the planet's equatorial region and an electric current produced merely by the planet's winds and magnetic field. We really did think of it as a gap. Blah. Here's what peak of what they've already learned. It's raining, it's pouring. At first glance, it's the kind of thing that you almost don't believe in. As a scientist, you have to do a little gut check, Meinke said. So the thing is, I don't remember anything about this in 2018. So what, it's like a couple years ago? They had expected those results to be measurements of the masses of ring rain, which scientists knew as a trickle of tiny particles falling from Saturn's innermost ring down towards the planet's upper atmosphere. So now they're saying they always knew, but they saw it was less. I've never heard of that. The instrument spotted not just hydrogen and helium, but also carbon monoxide, methane, nitrogen, and the unidentifiable remains of organic molecules. So this organic molecules thing is a big favorite of the current timeline. You're always hearing organic molecules in space, organic molecules in the ring rain. Now, they're not saying that it's life, but these are the building blocks of life. So that this downpour also included water, ice, and silicate particles, and showed that the downpour is triggered by the interaction of these particles with the highest levels of Saturn's atmosphere. It all adds up to around 10 tons per second of rain coming down from the rings to the planet. All right, so they're saying that the rings would have probably run out, but they're constantly moving and turning over. Anyway, they had some kind of weird story of, I'm trying to find it again, of there being like an electric charge that pulls the rain towards the atmosphere. So we've got water raining down on Saturn from the rings now, along with organic molecules and other stuff. And it's tons, tons and tons and tons. So I don't know what's going to come out of this story, but it's pretty weird. And so we basically have water rain along with other things on Saturn now. Pretty sneaky Mandela figuring out how to have it rain on Saturn and not even sound quite as weird as you'd think. Rain on the plains and rain on the Saturns is. Yeah, need input. They were talking about riding a normal moo milk providing taco meat looking cow. Yes, with a saddle and everything. And it's not even a big deal. There was a whole storyline on how cows in some ways are better steeds than horses because they don't tend to run off. They're more mellow. The downside was that they're slow and bumpy. So if you're in a hurry, they're slow. Also, they are hard to shoe. They said they are hard to shoe. They didn't say that they can't be shoed. So that means that they can't walk on like the pavement for long, or their hooves will wear down. But there was images of people with saddles and the whole spieleroni. Riding cows. Let me see if I can find that one. There was a nice ride a cow through the Swiss Alps. Quit horsing around. So they're everywhere now, basically. How to train a cow to be ridden. WikiHow. Why people don't ride cows. They do. Okay, this I think was the image I had on there. Looks like they're riding some longhorns. Now, apparently they're pretty chillax about being ridden. One of the complaints was that they're wide, and so you have to split your legs a lot, which is tiring. I would guess, it's just harder on the body. Some of these cows look thinner than you'd think, but all right, so people riding them. They don't even have fancy saddles or anything. Bareback in it. I don't remember, cows here, this lump on the chest region is getting bigger and bigger every time I look at these cows. Just didn't have that in my old timeline. Been the last 2 years that big chest region lump of, I think it's fat or something. I don't know what that is. See, look at that giant thing. That wasn't there before. I really do think they're longer, stretched out more than I remember. All right, so anyways, Bubbles, wow, NT, that's very generous of you. Yeah, that 300 is not US dollars, though. It's going to be some other dollar form. So I don't actually know how much money that is. I mean, people don't usually give more than like $10. They don't call him a cowboy for nothing. Dark Wolf, I was just thinking that. I'm like, is it some timeline where they all rode cows? Because it would make sense almost to ride cows. You just get on these people are riding them without a fancy saddle. It looks like they're They have small saddles or just like blankets. It looks like the rigging on the face is simpler. They're saying the cows are pretty mellow. You see here you got a cow and a couple horses. How to ride cows back in print. I swear I wondered about riding a cow an hour or two before your live show. Yep, future memory. Cow the West was one. Oh man, cow the good pun. Cows are somewhat more docile. Yeah, that was one of the pluses, that they're not all skittish. They don't fight you as much. Horses can be little stinkers. They're like, it's like trying to ride a cat. I mean, they kind of want to do their own thing, and then they're like, no, I don't wanna, and you kind of have to convince them, and then they're gnawing on your arm, and so it'd be kind of nice if you didn't have to deal with all that. All right, so we've got ring rain, couple little weird things, and then I'll talk about my UFO experience at Quartzsite at the end. It's not really a Mandela, but it's weird. All right, one more Mandela though before we get to the UFOs. All right, so I don't think all states have this, and probably not all countries, but in California, periodically you have to have your car tested to make sure that the smog emissions are within line. And if they're not, you either have to get it fixed, or they won't re-register your car. So my car's getting old, so that's when you start really worrying about it not passing smog. And they won't test your smog if there's like a engine light on, like a check engine light, even if it's not smog related or other certain problems. They won't even check it. It's an automatic fail. So the last year I've been having intermittent problems with the check engine light, and I had to make sure, after you fidget with the car, if you disconnect the battery, you lose the memory of the computer in there. And you're not allowed to get it smogged until the computer. It used to be, I mean, I swear, just a few months ago, it was 30 miles. You had to drive 30 miles after you disconnected your battery, and then you could get it smogged. If you didn't, so I would set my odometer, the trip odometer, to 0, and once I got to 30, I'd be waiting to see if that stupid check engine light would come back on or not. We've been fighting it for like months. It's all just little smog emission issues. It's not like the car doesn't run fine otherwise. But I mean, I check this. How long do you have to run it after you disconnect the battery? It was 30 miles. So here we are at smog time, and I had the check engine light off, but I still didn't pass smog. So we had to disconnect the battery to do repairs. So I just go on here to double check that it's 30 miles. So after 30 miles, I can go get it smogged, right? 30 miles. Well, it's never been 30 miles now. It was 30 miles like 2 months ago. But now I'm looking and I'm like double checking just in case, because my friend remembered 50 miles. I'm like, no, it's 30 miles. He's like, I sure it's not 50 miles. I check, it's 100 to 200 miles. That is so wrong. It was not 100. It was not 100 to 200. There is no freaking way. It's been 30 miles for like a decade. So, and now there's this weird thing you can do to shorten it. You don't really have to drive 100 to 200 miles. This was never on here. I've checked this so many times. But now there's this weird thing where you can do this system of maneuvers that's supposed to reset all of your test banks in your car, and so you could get it done in less than 100 miles, even less than 30 miles. That was never the case either, so that's what I'm going to have to do. And so, a lot of us have noticed changes in the cars, like the trims and colors, and the shapes have changed a little, but apparently the internal systems have changed quite a bit, because it's now I mean, this whole story is completely different. It was 30 miles. Not long ago, it was 30 miles. And for a long time, it just was like, you have to. This is another big fat ME for me. It's huge. I don't know how to describe how big it is because this is something I've been dealing with for like years. So I've gone to Smog 3 times and failed 3 times. So now I have to get this 30 miles slash 100 to 200 miles slash do certain maneuvers thing done so I can go smog it again. Let's pray that 4th time is the charm. The car runs, it's old, but it runs great, except for is not passing smog. And then we've done a bunch of repairs to pass smog. It run even better now. It's running really nice. So it turned out there was a little leak in the, well, there was a bunch of little things, but we think it was a little leak in the throttle position sensor sucking air was doing it. So have you guys discussed the CERN Shiva today? A tad, but nothing real exciting about it. If you see anything weird, let me know, because some people are seeing things that are old news for me. NT300 in the US is about $10. Thank you. $10 is still good money, so I appreciate that. I was saying that was like that, like kind of $5-10 is pretty average. I rode a camel in Mongolia, and they were very aggressive. Yeah, they're crabby little things, and they're a lot stronger in this timeline. It was a month or two ago, I showed a video of a camel with his mouth, grabbed this guy and picked him up and flung him around and threw him. Camels were nasty little stinkies in my old timeline, but they weren't strong enough to pick up a man and swing him around like a rag doll and then pitch him. So they actually scare me a lot more now, because in the old time, like they just bite you really hard or kick you. They didn't pick you up like Godzilla and just fling you. So I hope they get nicer in this timeline, because that was some impressive business. Don't like riding animals. Camel and donkey riding was not that much fun. I liked it, I have to say. I thought it was fun. Saddle sore sucks. I only rode for like an hour at a time. So if you ride 1 hour and you get off and you don't really feel anything, at least me, I didn't feel anything when I was sitting on them. And then when I got off, I was a little bit like stiff, but I wouldn't call it really exactly pain. I mean, if you went too long, you're supposed to go gradually. You're not supposed to like ride 1,000,000 hours on the first try. So your body gets used to it. My car passed. I love Hondas. Yeah, I have a Toyota. It's old. It's got like 210,000 miles on it, but it still runs. I had more miles on my Honda. That one still passed smog, but it started getting where it intermittently wouldn't start. And of course, you're way out somewhere far away most of the time. And then you don't know when it's going to feel like starting. And it just got worse. And we couldn't really track it down. And finally, I'm just like, how much more time are you going to put into this ancient fossil car? So then I inherited the old Toyota. And now I have that one instead. I have to go, guys. I have to drive my motorcycle back to my village. Well, thank you for coming by, Nachiketa. Yeah, I love Hondas or Toyotas. They are, even when stuff breaks on them, they still drive. I inherited this Chevy, and it's a Chevy S10. It's broken every 5 minutes, and it only has like half the mileage of the other cars. And when they break, like stupid stuff happens, like the entire brake system goes out, or it stops in the middle of the freeway and all the gas splats out on top of the exhaust in the middle of the freeway. You could blow yourself, kingdom come. That's the kind of things that the Chevy S10 has. Then what something fell out of it and it just suddenly stopped working another time. I've had more problems with that thing. And then the transmission went out and I got a new one and then it went out 3 months later. I'm going to give it to the junkyard. I'm done with that S10. No Moss S10. I love my Honda and I love my Toyota, but Subarus are, I don't know, they're just not my style. I have to say, I don't, my friend has one. It seems to be holding up pretty good, but she doesn't even have half the miles I have on mine. So yeah, don't forget Dark Wolf Den's Mandela Effect Conference.com for the latest Mandela conference stuff. I believe they're working on some new conferences too. I just remember camels spitting a lot and being stubborn. Yeah, and they would bite. I mean, horses bite too, but I mean, now they'll throw you like a rag doll. And then my site, MandelaEffectResearch.com for research. I haven't added anything in a few weeks, but I'll probably work on it again maybe this next week. Okay, so the UFO story, the teaser. I'm not sure what this is. It's UFO because it's unidentified, it's flying, and it is an object. So I was out there. We camp out in the desert, but it's not far. Strange light spotted in West Phoenix. This is the closest I was able to find. So I'm camped out in the desert, but it's not far from town, and there are other people camped out. And you're just like out in the desert. There's not really any facilities. You're close to town, so I just go into town for food. All right, so December 2019. Let's see if I can find some images. I don't know why it's going so slow. So people have been seeing these weird orange lights, I guess, around Arizona. And I had vaguely heard about it, but I didn't really think that I might see any of them. This is not exactly what I saw, but they were orange. They were very orange. All of them were orange. So I should have took video, but first of all, you would just see a tiny orange speck because my camera sucks and I just had my phone camera and it is not good at that stuff. What it looked like was like a super, when people shoot up fireworks, they shoot up really fast and then gravity gets them and they fall. So they have to have a lot of momentum in the start and then they'll fall. If you don't have a lot of momentum in the start, it won't go up high. It'll just go bloop. So they would shoot up, but they weren't fast enough to be like ballistic speed. They would go faster at first, and then they would slow down, and they'd go slower and slower, slower. And it looked like, if I would say, it looked like one bright orange LED light as far as brightness was concerned, but they were a little bit flickery. So it did look a little bit fireworky, but it has to be on its own power for two reasons. One, it did not waver at all. It always had a track. So if, say it was a Chinese lantern, they float around weird. They don't go faster at first and then hover. These things had like a straight track. It would move slowly, but it was a very straight track. They wouldn't blow off. They would follow their track. They would get slower and slower and slower. And then it looked like it would kind of hover or it was going super slow, but I felt like it was kind of hovering for so it'd take about 3 minutes total. The last 3 minutes total, the last 20 seconds or so, it would just kind of hover. And then it would start to flicker more and more, and then it would dim out, and then it would disappear. So the first night I'm camp out by myself. I go into town, I do a bunch of stuff, and then I just drive out into the desert, and I've got some cushions and blankets in the back of this rental SUV, and I just lay on there and I sleep. But the windows are all around me, so I'm looking out the window and I'm looking at the stars and I'm thinking about how the sky looks very light. And then I see this orange light come up. Well, that's weird. Are they shooting fireworks? What? And it's kind of late, and people there are mostly old retired folks, so there's not much activity at like 10 o'clock at night. Most of the people are asleep, to be honest, even the campers. Then there's like another one that goes up, and some of them have a little bit more pitched, like steeper or less steep track, but they all do the same thing. It looked like they were coming out from the same area, and I didn't see anybody out of their campers from that area, and it was pretty close because there's like Dome Rock that I've already showed you was behind, and that's not even maybe a half mile away, and this thing was in front of it, so I know it's close. It looked like it was really close to the road. So I don't know, I was like confused, but I was sleepy. And sometimes one would shoot out, fizzle, and another would shoot right away, and then other times it might be 20 minutes before you see one. So eventually I just went to sleep. I didn't expect to ever see him again. The next night, after dark, I'm leaving town, drive into the campsite. This time I was going to a specific campsite that a friend of mine had just come to, and I was meeting her there, and I saw the red lights again. And it looked like about the same area as last time. So this time I'm getting curious, and I try to get close to it. So I pull off the road when I think I'm like as close as it gets. And I turn off the light and I roll down the window, and I'm very close to underneath it, and I'm watching it fizzle out. There's no sound whatsoever, not even the slightest sound attached to these lights. And they fizzle out. Nothing appears to fall after they fizzle out. So, I don't know. So, now I'm like, well, somebody must be shooting these, but how are they going so slow? I mean, like, are they on a drone in a weird program? That's the only thing I can think of is if somebody programmed a drone to do this and falsely flicker the light as some kind of hoax. I don't know why they would do it late at night but, so I'm like thinking, okay, maybe it's some kind of weird drone thing, so that was as close as I could come to it. And then I go to my campsite and I go to sleep. Okay, so the next night 3, I always do the same thing. I shop until dark, and then I go eat, and then I drive to my campsite. So it's always dark by the time I'm driving. So again, with the red lights, there they were again, like I saw another one. And I do the same thing. I drive real close. I'm trying to figure out what it was. I'm looking for people that could have shot it. I don't see anything or anybody. Nothing falls, no noise. So I give up. It's late. So I get back out on the road. I drive 2 or 3 more miles, and then I drive into my campsite, which is just off the road. But here's the where it's weird. Okay, I thought somebody behind me had been shooting them, like 2-3 miles behind me. I drive in, and now there's one coming from the opposite side, from the western side. Is that the western side? Anyway, further down the road, coming from the other way. It's coming towards me, but it's getting to the float side, and getting to the float stage, I call it, where I get like almost right under it. We're out, there's no campers under me now. Again, I turn off the engine. I'm like almost right under it, but it's sort of over this ravine, so I can't really get under it this time. And same thing, peters out, nothing. But here's the thing. So it couldn't have been one person shooting these, because they were 2 miles down the road shooting up from somewhere near the ground over there. And then I got on the Dome Rock Road, and I was the only one at the road. It's a 2-lane little road. I was the only one on the road the entire way for miles. So there's no behind me. When I drove off, the red lights were behind me. There is no way that you're going to make it over the desert in the dark at anywhere near the rate I can ride on the road. And then I drive straight in and it's already coming from in front of me. There's no way that that could be one person doing it. Unless, I don't know, I guess you could maybe fly a drone really fast over, land it, and then come up again. Anyways, it was just really weird. So I don't know, I'm not even saying I don't think it's aliens. It's so tiny. I would have said it's some kind of drone thing in another timeline, but there's so many weird natural phenomena here. In the way it kind of floats up and stuff, I'm wondering if it's some weird natural phenomena here. There's been a bunch of sightings of strange orb-like lights in the last few months in Arizona. All of a sudden, I saw this bright, glowing orange light. See, that's what it looked like. Mysterious lights hovering over Mesa skies. Sunday was pretty bright. They are bright, so I don't know. Am I seeing what these other people are seeing in Mesa? So I asked people, like the campers, and they didn't know what they were. I looked online for anything that could replicate that. Didn't find anything. It went straight that way, stopped, and didn't seem like it was too far. They just spotted their phenomena outside their Mesa home on Sunday around 9 that night. It started moving kind of diagonal across. I was trying to figure out which way it was heading, and that when we noticed it started dropping things from it. Okay, mine didn't drop anything. This one dropped like flares. Anyways, but they're saying they're orange. That's what was interesting. They weren't flares because, I've seen them drop flares. They drop flares and then the flares sink. These never sank. They went up, then they hovered, they petered out, but they never, ever sank. Not one of them ever sank. They would float in place. Also, flares usually have a little bit of effect from the wind, but... So, I don't know. I don't know. There we go. It doesn't look like... God, I hope I was live that whole time because that was a heck of a lot of yapping. Even drops her thing. So that's my unidentified flying weird lights story. Me and my daughter saw Steve over our house. Steve is that new word for that weird strip-like aurora borealis thing. I remember that. So yeah, I don't know, in another timeline, I'd say that was probably just some kind of hoax or tech I know about. But in this timeline, things are weird here. Dope. It was much easier to find strange things before YouTube algorithms were changed. I need to find more ME channels. Yeah, I noticed that. I was trying to find this weird footage of some of the weird live streams from the ISS. And it used to be they'd practically fall out of the woodwork onto my screen. But now when you do a hunt for them, fake hoax NASA ISS, what you get is 95% of them are videos from NASA that have nothing to do with hoaxes or fakes. So yeah, the algorithms are not helpful right now. And Google for the last year has really sucked too. As I'll type in exactly what I want and Google will give me stuff that only has one of my words. And I want all of my words. That's why I typed all those words, because I want them all in there. And you really have to fight with Google to find anything anymore. Just give me the words that I typed in for my Google search. Why don't you, Mr. Google? I guess I'm in a whiny mood today or something. So, anyways, yes, if anybody has any ideas what those orange lights could have been, I'm definitely open to I don't know what you would call it, rational, I don't think that's the right word, mundane explanation. But I don't know. Anyways, that's the end of my weird story. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I think it's time for me to head on out of here. Ooh, my peak concurrent was 79 people. Dum, dum, dum. That's actually probably a record for me. There hasn't been a lot of chit chat, so I thought nobody was here, but apparently either a lot of bots or a lot of people were silently listening. All right, so I think it's time for me to head out. Thank you all for all your contributions. As usual, couple of very kind super chats. Very much appreciate that. So anyways, think good thoughts, everybody. This is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline.